at an area close to the sea, and I found myself struggling to breathe because the air was dark. There was a constant slap of water hitting the wall. If I got adjusted, the air felt less like it was squeezing my lungs than it did in mountains. Accra was a mad world, especially because I was so tired after our journey. It held more people than I'd seen anywhere else. There were houses that beat the mission house in size, if there were any of them. Auntie Rose said she would take me to Private Osman's home before she went to fetch the missionaries, because it would be easier for her to recount a story that didn't have witnesses. She would tell her parents that I'd run away. It was not uncommon. After 6 people ran away from the mission there. Always they went to Accra. I wasn't really pleased about Ramsey thinking of me as an ungrateful heathen runaway, but my reputation could take a beating. I had to find Hussein. Auntie Rose spoke to Hajia Sheikh, Private Osman's wife, whose husband wasn't at home but had been expecting us. Auntie Rose stuffed coins and notes into my palm. She grabbed me by the shoulder, stared down at me, and urged me to keep believing I could find Hussein. She then pulled Hajia onto the side of a mud-colored house. I felt naked as I waited for them. When they came back, Hajia asked me how I was in Hausa. I said I was fine. She asked me how I ended up at the missions, and I realized how much language I had lost when it became. I could now speak Dumanjena, English, and Twi. The third languages I learned were being spoken new. It was almost as if Hajia were just waiting to see his back disappear, for her to reveal herself to me. Her golden smile, which I found so welcoming and warm, drew into a stiff lip. I wondered if I would end up like one of the heroines in the stories Auntie Rose had introduced me to, a maltreated child. You have to earn your keep here, said. We're not European missionaries who can just feed mouths. Stop here. Would you like to do? Would you like to ask questions? Or?
Yes. So we have an audience here. We would call upon any of them to ask any questions if they have any. Any questions? As we're waiting, I'll ask my question. Okay, so both of you ladies wrote YA novels. And for those who are not familiar, what exactly is a young adult novel, and why did you choose to write a young adult novel?
Well, mine is technically listed in middle grade because the protagonist is 12 years old, but it can be read by anyone from 8 to 9 years old and upwards. And I chose that because it just really worked for the story. I spoke with my agent. It was a story that I wanted to tell for a long time. I wanted to tell a story based in my hometown where I was born. I wanted to tell a story about childhood adventures and friendships. And it just happened that she was a 12-year-old, and it just fell into that genre just by accident. It wasn't on purpose.
So in my case, I think there was a lot of purpose in writing for young adults because it was a picture. That's the editor of this book, Sarah Dodina, and she came to my book talk at the time. I think I just launched 100 Balls, and she asked me if I considered writing for younger readers. She didn't ask for young adults specifically. She just said for children. And at that point, I knew that I had to write twins because I couldn't get them out of my head. I wondered what had happened to them. So when she approached me, it was kismet. It was like, wow, okay, I don't, right? I'm not even going to waste time and pretend that I don't have an idea. I know who the book is going to get. So I guess like Karine because I had the characters and because I had this conversation, I knew that it would be targeted more toward younger readers. And YA for those who don't know, young adults, I think is more like from 13 to 18, 19, 20, even at 20, young adults. But then these kinds of books are really meant for anyone else, for anyone and everyone. I guess the market differences are that in YA and maybe in mid-grade as well, you leave the reader with a message of hope, but you don't have to shy away from difficult topics. In my book, there's the topic of slavery, which is looming behind everything. And Karine, do you want to talk about some of your themes that are?
Yeah, I deal a lot with religion and mental health, friendship, but I think mental health is probably the biggest issue that I deal with. And like Aisha said, that we don't have to shy away from those subjects because of the age group that we're writing for. Because children go through all those things, children need to know all these things. They need to know about slavery, and they need to know about mental health, conversation, having open conversation and open dialogue is so important. And like Aisha said, just as long as there's hope at the end of it, if that's the difference with children's book, you've got to finish on a positive. But I think it's so important to write about these subjects. It's important for kids to see that in books, that it's not something that's hidden or embarrassing to talk about these real subjects and real issues that they need to know and be informed about. So, yeah.
You were a child and all the questions you had.
Yeah.
People are questions that you still grapple with right now.
Yeah.
We get out of it. Just because child doesn't mean that don't wonder about why a certain uncle is a certain way, why in your own family one person believes this and the other believes that. All these questions you have. 4 years old, I'm watching my son grow up and he's so curious and sometimes he throws you off because the questions here. Like, how old are you? But how he we can perceive things too. So I don't know why we get to a certain age and we think that they shouldn't be exposed to certain things or they shouldn't have certain discussions that have happened about them. Obviously, it should be done within reason, but as a child, you see a lot in the world, and I think it's healthier that talk about them, bury them under the surface until almost too late,
Yeah. Okay. We have some other questions. I think he was his hand. But you can go. Okay.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for what you read so far. Could you two comment slightly on the setting by time? And currently I have a sense that it's set in the now, like it's more present, whilst Aisha yours is set a bit in the past. Why do you choose those times?
I think for me, I just feel more comfortable writing about contemporary fiction. I have dabbled in historic fiction, which is a book I've got coming out next year, and I found that really difficult. I find it easier to write about now and subjects that are happening now. I've just always found it easier to write that way. But I do like exploring like historical fiction as well. That's really hard to do, Aisha.
Well, actually, each book sort of writes itself and dictates how it should be written because I'll talk about the difference between In Conjunction with the Animals of Salada because they're two books that are based and have characters in common. And with the Handles of Salada, I tried to write it as a contemporary book. I actually really did, and I had a character fall into a well and go back in time. But it just did not. Because the went pretty far into the process, and the world was just not gelling. So then when I did actually go into the world itself, and me as a writer go into that world and time travel, it was a much smoother process. So because the deep blue between is a product of the Universal Salad that had to continue in that world. But what I liked about the deep blue between is that it's not a book about slavery, even though slavery is in the background. The girls are breaking through that. So it shows a world, an ancient world. Obviously, there's colonialism coming up, which is another thing in itself. But there's a chance for the girls to also just develop and bloom without these dark books around. And I had a lot of fun with them. They could play, they could be a little more adventurous than like Amina was in the 100 Walls of Salafat. But then if a book wants to be contemporary, it's not that I'm stuck in the past. I just finished a rom-com that sets in 2006, and then my second book was in 1990 something. So I just let the books guide me. Some books decide to be contemporary, and then some themes just happen to be set in the past and sweat. So we'll be happy.
Thank you. Okay.
Hi, I'm Shah. Hi. Can you go hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Listen, so it's very interesting. I was looking at Kelly's book. Kelly's title is when life gives you mangoes. Is that what it is? Yes.
Yeah.
And then I when I saw the title, my first thought was, oh yeah, she's a Ghanaian. And then because I went to Jamaica and I always had a sense as though I was in Ghana, just that people have a wrong accent and that kind of thing. And so I've just started reading this book, How to Love a Jamaican. And my question is for both of you. I'm sure that Aisha, you yourself too, you felt a connection to Jamaica. So I wanted to ask you, Kelly, have you been reading any literature from Ghana? And Aisha, have you been reading Jamaican authors? So.
Okay, so I love the Caribbean. So I think of even writers getting these pimples. Oh, here comes the sun.
Yeah, yeah.
But what are we looking at?
Nicole Dennis.
Thank you, Nicole Dennis. I think of writers like just these are older writers, so like my brain saying Jamaica Kincaid. I think she's Jamaican. She's Jamaican.
We'll claim her. Her name is Jamaica.
I like literature in general. I'm thinking also of just books set on islands just speak to me. Andrea Levy as well. She writes Small Island, Jamaican British. And because I live in a place that I like to think is an island right now, it just gravitates from that. Something magical about being surrounded by so much water and that's your world, everywhere you go you can hit water. And then when it goes the deep in between, at some point there is an island involved because in Brazil I stayed on an island and it was almost otherworldly, and I wanted to write that for Husseina as well. So yeah, that's some of the literature I've been reading from the Caribbean. Sorry, I just made it broader than it should have been.
No, it's very interesting actually.
Yeah, I'm probably going to butcher it as well. One of my favorite books is Purple Hibiscus. Is she from Nigeria?
Yeah, Nigeria.
Yeah, oh my gosh, she's just the way she writes is like poetry. And the way I started writing was really inspired by her, by reading that book, because not only did the story of Purple Hibiscus related to it with having a strict religious father and being a teenager, I just loved her writing so much that I love reading books where you just feel like you're swimming in the words because it's so poetic. And I think she does that really well. But I do love reading books that's out of what I know. And I don't read a lot of books by authors in England, and I think because I am originally from the Caribbean and I really like stories that are based in a tropical island and that of warm weather and a different country, and I just feel like I'm a lot more drawn to, especially like small towns. I'm really drawn to small towns or small village stories where just normal families or a normal community were just going about their everyday lives, and something just completely turns it upside down. And stories like that. So yeah, I don't know where else to go with that.
Thank you.
I think another writer who's Book of Night will be Marlon James.
Yes.
Oh, Marlon James, yes. Yeah.
I tried to read the one about money, but I think with a child it was just impossible. The huge, what's that one called?
Black leopard. Is it
Black leopard.
black leopard something?
Black leopard something.
That's the third one. The second one, the one about Wamadi.
The seven.
Seven Killings of, yeah, that.
Yes.
Yeah. And Michelle gets for now go back to it. Yeah.
There's time.
Thanks, Casey.
And by the way, thank you, Aisha, for picking up that story, because when I finished 100 Worlds, that was my thought. Wait a minute, what happened to the girl? I can't wait to dive into it. It's not in Ghana yet, but I'm just waiting. Gorgeous cover, by the way. Gorgeous cover.
About the cover. So both of you have books that have beautiful cover art. And so I wanted to know, like, do you play a role in the kind of book covers that come out for your books?
For me, it was a very small role when the publishers started to think about doing the cover. My editor asked me if I had any photos of what my main character looked like. And I did. I had this photograph that I found online of this girl that just looked exactly like my character, what I wanted my character to look like. And she had these two buns, she was wearing dungarees, and it was a pink background. And they sent that to her. So I think that sort of inspired it. This completely pink. But apart from that, that was as much input I had. Then they just went away and just collaborated with an illustrator. And then when they finished, they sent it to me and asked me what I thought of it, if I liked it. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it depends. With this one, I think they suggested two mock-ups, and I got to choose which one I liked. But I think there was maybe play on the cover of the 100 Laws of Salaga, the U.S. victim, because it also has two women.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if the illustrator was inspired by that, but I see a lot of similarity to the water and two faces. And I loved it from the get-go. I think in the past, if I haven't picked a cover, I've been vocal. Okay, that's the publishers, but if I really don't like it, actually tell me, consider this. And they actually listened. This is for Saturday, because there was a tree on the cover, and I didn't just understand why. And eventually, they got this beautiful photo from a Cameroonian photographer. So it depends. And then with 100 Laws of Salaga, I think with the US cover, got to say exactly what I want. I wanted two faces, and then they got Love is One, young illustrators for it. So it depends on the publisher and their visions as well.
Awesome.
Any more questions? Yes. This question is for Aisha, because I read 100 Worlds and I was wondering, so was it easier to write this because these were characters you had already created from the previous novel, or was it more difficult because you felt the need to sort of be true to how you had first presented them?
It was a combination. Just coincidence of the same time. Was it that?
It's Abena,
Who is it?
Abena, bookworm in GH.
Well, I should be there physically. Anyway, I think it was a combination because I did have to stay true to their personalities. When we meet Hassan, we see Husseina as, in her sister's shadow. She's always being coddled, and Hassan is just outgoing girl. So, in one regard, I had to show personalities, but in another, they have now been in the pressure cooker of slavery and what that can do to a person's spirit, or going or not. So with Husseina, it was easier to write that because she's already introverted. But with Hassana, it was a struggle because I needed to show that even though she was an extrovert that had been sort of extinguished and it was not, that was an interesting problem to solve. But then at the same time, the book spans a number of years. So you see the girls grow. They start off at they're 10 years old, and then when books end, they're quite old. They will tell you how it's So showing that evolution as well was an interesting challenge. And people really like who I was at age 30 versus now. There are certain elements that people will say like she's still this way, but then I'm like grown up. So showing that evolution was also a fun little writer's problem to solve. I hope that answers the question.
Yes.
Okay, so I have another question. So which characters were your favorite to write? I know Corinne, your main character is Clara.
Yeah.
And so was she your favorite? Was she your favorite character to write? And also Aisha, between the twins, who was to write?
Yeah. So Clara, I love writing about Clara, but I think my most favourite character was Clara's uncle called Eldorak. Because he's just because he's just such a unique personality. I felt like he brought so much color and life to Clara's, not just Clara's life, but to the village. Which is another reason why the village, I have shown him is because he's so different, and he doesn't blend in, he stands out, which is what I love about him. He's completely different. He's his own person. He's unapologetic about who he is, and I love the message of what he sends by just being himself. Like you can be whoever you want to be, and be proud and be unapologetic about it. So yeah, he's my favorite.
And I love voice purple. That's all I'm gonna say.
Purple velvet. Yeah.
Yes, have to sell that. You have that book. So I don't know when we get that class series, but hopefully soon. And it's
Talk to Sarah.
Yeah, we have to tell Sarah to get copies.
Yeah.
Yes, we need it.
So goodness. And Tiana told you at the NYU talk the other day that she hates the question of what is your favorite book? And you're but I think I enjoyed writing Hassana's search for her voice, search for who she once was, that thing that was, tamped out by being enslaved, that fire that she had in her, that search for that fire was so much fun to write. And when it does eventually come out, was the moment where I was clapping as a writer, so I just wanted to read it. Finally, it back. And with Husseina, they're not actually and cheating. But Husseina, I think I really, really like that from the very minute that we meet her in this book. She's already using that internal power to be a medium in a certain way. Um, and I really enjoyed exploring that, what that meant to be very spiritually strong without even realizing it. Because in her head, she said, nobody's ever called me strong. But she has this internal strength that's really amazing. And I enjoyed writing that too. Um, otherwise, my version of Eldoret is a girl called Augustina Na Amele, who comes in later in the book. Yes,
Madame.
we'll have those characters. Um, yeah, bring light into books who are just down, who are unapologetic. So it's Augustina for me, outside the twins. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, we have another question.
Okay, so my question is to
Should
Aisha.
be a little louder.
My question is to Aisha. Okay, okay. I want to ask the question of how, because I just finished reading my time, and I remember when I got to where DHR went to the independence, when one was talking and all that, I found myself smiling. I don't know why, but I felt I was in the moment. I could feel it. So I don't know how she does it, but I want to know. Is it research? Was she dead then, or I don't know, it just comes to her because she does great work with that. And I understand why she says she likes historical fiction and like writing that. Because it felt real. It was as if, I remember when I was at Ghana, I was just smiling like, I'm there, I could feel it there. So I want to ask how she does that.
So I got snatches of it. Which parts of the book?
Where Lizzie went to the Independence Square to find Kwame Nkrumah speaking. I mean, that bit of independence, I mean, every part of the historical part of that book, I felt was so real, and I want to find out how you get to that, if it's clear now.
Yeah, I think, so when I'm writing, I go to places. I time travel literally. I put myself in this place and time with reading everything, newspapers, literature, books. China counts that I think the most racist things I've ever read in my life, but people thought about times and places and the people they were interacting with. I just immerse myself in everything. So with the Underbus of Salaga, I would even read things that are called that are chronicles on how like the Gonja Kings settled in Ghana. Everything. I try to just be as immersive as I can so I can even teach the history class on my thing eventually. But I do that for a while and then when I active here with research. Then I sort of throw that all away and then I let the characters take over. And because I've time traveled, because I that work of immersing myself in that space, I don't really have to go back to the research until it's time to fact check. I just let characters speak. So like Lizzie would just go to the Independence Avenue, and because I've done that research, I know that Kwame Nkrumah is standing on a ledge. This is from 10 years ago, but not be making this up right now. I know that there were well, I know that there were African Americans who came down just for the event, and then I can use that to guide them. So it's a lot of research, it's a lot of full immersion. Just like if you want to learn a language, you say you should go into a place and do the same thing with time, with time travel, literally. And that definitely helps in creating reality. But I don't always get it right. There's certain people that can do all the research you want, and you will never find out. So it is a work of fiction, and I do allow myself a few creative freedoms when I really read stuff. But there's a part of me that's a purist and wants to get it right. At the end of the day, it'll. So, yeah.
Okay, and so when COVID is finally, getting better for everyone, will you ladies be coming to Ghana and Jamaica respectively to promote your books? Like, is that the plan?
Yeah, I would love to. And we've had a couple of bookstores in Jamaica that have have our books in stock. So I would love to go over and sign a few books, and because there's nothing like knowing that your book is in your home country. It's just the best feeling. You feel so proud. So yeah, that's literally the first thing that I want to do. Is go there.
Yeah, I'd love to come to Ghana as soon as maybe before the end of the year, who knows? Maybe. See, I have been very apprehensive about traveling, as I guess most people have been, and also because my mother is, she has an autoimmune condition, so I really don't want to expose her to anything. So I don't know when that will happen, but hopefully when we know how to deal with how to better in this world with this new reality, I can a more solid, definite answer. But I got that. And I have a question for Kareem when you that. What is just a lot of bookstore? It's a big literary culture. I know there's a festival. The Kalaloo Festival.
Kalaloo Festival. Yeah. Well, actually, I didn't know how big it was because I'm in England and I only visit every couple of years if I can, and I didn't realize how big the scene was over there, especially with book bloggers. It's only when my book came out that all these, not just Jamaican but Caribbean bloggers got in touch, and we had this Zoom where there were so many of them and we were talking about what a big scene it is over there, and I was like, what? I had no idea, because when I lived in Jamaica, when I left when I was 8 years old, it wasn't that big at all. We only read school. We didn't read pleasure at all. It's only when I came to England I started reading pleasure, but now it's seen. Yeah, it's really, really big over there. But that's really good.
Thank you.
Okay, so we only have about 4 minutes left. Are there any other questions? Okay, so before we leave, could you ladies please tell those who haven't read the book yet, why should they pick up your book that just came out? Why?
Oh wow, okay. So sales pitch, yeah. So yeah, I think people should buy When Life Gives You Mangoes because it's about going on a journey to find who you are. It's about accepting who you are. It's about a girl who's really thinks she has nothing to offer to the world. Thinks she lives this boring life. She thinks that nobody likes her, and it isn't until somebody comes into the village and shows her her potential and who she is, and how loved she is, that she starts to see her strength. And I think if you really enjoy books that where you go on a journey of discovery and then you suddenly get a how, wow, I didn't expect that. There's a that at the end of it, something that you don't expect. So you think it's a normal contemporary book, and then something happens that completely just hopefully you're not expecting. So if you like mystery, if you like reading a book where you leave little clues to tell you where it's going, and then you find out that you were lied to all along. Then. Aisha.
Okay. Why should people get the deep in between? This is a book about connections, and we have all those. We have relationships with our mothers, fathers, with our siblings, and the relationship between twins. I think everyone in the world is fascinated by how do these two people who've known each other day one, how do they live with each other? Do they really like each other? And yes, you can see that their bonds are so difficult to break. So when that bond is physically broken, they're forced apart because of this horrible machine called slavery. What does that do to these two people? What does that? How does that change them? And if you like stories that are on the magic realist side, because they begin to dream each other's dreams, they're connected by water, they're connected by that bond. And that bond is the thing that is keeping them going in their own separate worlds. If you like that kind of literature, this is for you. And like Kareem's book is also an adventure book. It's a travel book if you want to read about travel in the 19th century, about Black people traveling in the 19th century. This is a book for you. Okay, so it's not a book about slavery. Then you have people going on voluntary journey, on journeys of their own will across the Atlantic Ocean. This is for you. And then if you've had questions about belief and why we're here and what we believe in, especially as Africans who have felt somewhat displaced or imposed on with other people, this is a book that begins to ask questions that we so buy it and fun, there are interesting characters, there are lots of things if you are Ghanaian that people go like, oh, that's why this is called, that's why we have this kind of, set up in Accra. I did a lot of work to find out why certain things are the way they are. So this page is specifically for Ghanaians. You will find out about Ghana.
Yeah. Thank you very much. This was an awesome discussion. Thank you, ladies, for your time.
Thank you so much for having us.
Bye. Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.